Well, we're back, and this sweet baby got his bake on, and I was noticing when I was looking at him that the flesh layer I put on had tiny a bit. Let me move this camera just a little bit for you. The tiniest amount of matte varnish, and that's fine because he really didn't need it anyway, but some babies do. He just didn't. This is the Claudia Sculpt by Phil Donnelly, and we're gonna go ahead and do the first layer after the base layer, and that would be yellow for me. I want to tell you that this is the order that I do it. There is no order. You can do the yellow layer at the end, you can do it in the middle, you can do it at the beginning, you can eliminate it at all if you don't like that amber look on a baby. I do things in a certain order so that I remember to do them. And again, sometimes I eliminate it entirely. It depends how I visualize this baby turning out. Yellow is tricky because you don't want to end up with a baby that looks orange when you add your red layer. You don't want a baby that looks a little too jaundiced, but I think yellow undertones do add some depth. And this is probably the one paint I use straight out of the jar. I call it mustard. I think it's ochre. It's in your Bountiful Baby Kit, I believe. And again, I'm trying to use the paints that are in your kit. These are not paints that would probably normally use, but I want to be able to utilize what you have in your kit so you can get started. What I did was I took my little dish and I added about this much, just a tiny dab of brush with some paint thinner. And I want this to be thin, but not as thin as the wash. I want it to be just a little bit thicker, and I will show you how it drips. It just barely drips off your brush. It's going to take some time to drip off of there. And again, this is just my way. It doesn't have to be your way. You will figure something different out, I'm sure. It's whatever works for you. So the places that I like to place my yellow are on the front of the nose. And I am literally just going to brush this on. Front of the nose, underneath eyes, on top of eyelids. Not everybody does eyelids. I do. I go here. I call this the mustache, but it's just the upper part of the lip there. I go underneath this lip. Not on the lips, just underneath, a little bit on the chin. And then I make this funny little shape up here above the brow bone. And I just make like a little circle. It's like drawing a little hat. So it's a line with a little hat on top. Don't ask me why I do that. That's just what I do. And I go on the tips of the ears. And that's about it. Now this paint is thin, but it's not thin enough that it's just dripping down the face like it did with our wash. Now I'm going to get a yellow sponge, which I don't have, so I'll just use a new one. Again, I'm just going to pick off the super sharp edges. I'm not a fan of that. And I'm just going to dab at that and kind of push that yellow into those places and blend it out a little bit. I don't want there to be an obvious delineation. That means that I don't want to see where it starts and where it stops. Just want to blend it out. And this is going to leave you with a very pale yellow. Remember, we're working in super translucent tones. There shouldn't be, at this point, anything that's super obvious. You might say, wow, it doesn't even look like I did anything. That means you did it right. You should barely be able to notice. I want a little bit more yellow on this baby. So I'm just going to go again. Usually you should wait until bake to the next time, but this is still pretty wet. Again, I don't like to dab over paint that has dried but not baked. It sometimes pulls it off and leaves it patchy. And I'm just patting that color in. And with this yellow, you don't want it to dry, so don't wait too long, because once it dries, it's going to leave like a little stain, like when you leave a coffee cup or a wine glass on a table, it leaves that little ring, and it's hard to blend out after that. Now, I'm noticing as I'm doing this that I'm pulling up a little bit in certain places, and I don't want that because it's going to be pretty difficult to get out. So I'm just using a makeup brush It doesn't matter what you use. I just grabbed any one. And I'm just going to go inside of those eyelids and blend out that pool anywhere where there's creases. This baby is artist made, and I noticed that when at least the older sculpts that are artist made, the artists tend to go super, super deep with their creasing. I know there's a reason for it. I don't know what it is, but that means you get a lot of pooling that you don't necessarily want to have. So you need to go in those creases and kind of clean them out and go above those ears. And that's it for yellow. Then we're going to bake. Again, if you can barely see it, means you killed it. So feet. What I do is I go on the tops of the feet. I go across the toes just a tiny bit, and I go on the shin. I'm not sure why I do that. I just do. Again, get that sponge, blend it out. You don't want to have a big yellow oval in the middle of this baby's shin. It's going to look like it has an old bruise. And then I'm going to go atop of those little toes and over that foot. And that's all for feet. Let me do a hand real quick. Hand, same as the foot. I go over the top of the hand, tops of the fingers, and on top of the forearm. I wish I had a reason to tell you. I don't know. That's just how I feel like doing it and where it seems to work for me. And if you have other experiences and it's turned out wonderfully for you, please share them in the comments. I love, love, love learning from people. And it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. Honestly, I have not been doing this a super long time. This is, I think, my second year. I am an artist, so some of these techniques and principles aren't new to me. But, you know, reborning is its own art form, and I still learn from everybody around me. And the beauty of this is I think that we learn from people who come in fresh because they try things that we haven't tried before, and they discover things that we haven't discovered. And I think sharing is awesome, and that's why I'm making these videos. Not because I think I'm an expert reborner, but because I think that when I started doing this, I was on YouTube and I was asking people and I was trying to figure this out, and I was wishing that, you know, there was somebody I could talk to about it. I had a million questions, and I thought, well, you know what, now that I have a lot of those basic questions answered, I would share for the next person who's coming in, and things that I wish somebody would have told me. There is so much free information out there. And I think it's great that this art form doesn't have trouble sharing that. If you run into somebody who is charging you for a class, it better be for a master class or a class where you're learning to do things that are next level. This is very basic, and this information you should be able to find easily. I think Bountiful Baby actually has a getting started video series that's not too bad. And Custom Doll Baby on YouTube, I'll link it below. She has the most informative. I think I watched her videos 20 times. Bless her, she gave the information away, and she did such a good job, and she has such a pleasant voice and such a sweet face, and I learned a lot from her. Yeah, you might want to check those videos out too. Like I said, everybody is using the same tools, and we're all doing the same thing. But, you know, we all have our own way of doing it, and somebody else's way might jive with your style and what you like. This is the oddest little hand, but I think it's going to look kind of cool. Again, this baby is way over creased. The creases are so deep. The cool thing about that is you're not going to have to crease a lot with this baby because it naturally has all the creasing shadows built in. So we're not going to have to create illusion. I'm sorry, my voice is going out. So there we are with yellow. Again, you can go yellow again. You can go yellow after bake. You can go yellow after you do blue or red or skin tones, or after you do hair and think, geez, this baby needs a little bit more. It's up to you. But here we are, just a tiny bit of yellow. Put that baby in the oven, 265 for 8 minutes, and I will see you back with Blue. We're gonna make a little zombie baby. Be right back.